Hey, what's happening, guys? What's going on YouTube? Good morning, everybody. You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels, and the title of today's video is going to be both workers and employers are being dishonest about remote work. And I think you guys are going to like today's video. We're going to be talking about remote work and work from home, and looking at it from an angle that I don't think anybody has really talked about or looked at it from. The whole topic of returning to the office is starting to come up again. I'm starting to see a flurry of articles about how, companies are sending emails out to their employers, out to their employees, trying to convince them of, why they should miss the office and why they should want to be back in the office. A lot of companies, and a lot of the articles are centered around companies are trying to bribe employees to come back to the office with food. Like, oh, we're going to be ordering lunch every day, or we're going to be ordering lunch for you guys on Fridays. And honestly, if a free $4 Little Caesars pizza is going to get people to come back into the office, I think that probably says something about how you're paying people, that, something as simple as food is going to bring people back into the office. But these articles are talking about how with inflation and the rising costs of food as well as everything else, free food might be a perk that gets people back into the office. There's also a TikTok video that's going viral right now where a woman reads off, she got an email from her employer about 24 reasons why you should want to come back into the office. And she kind of goes step by step and breaks down how silly all of these reasons are. One of them, I think number one was, sometimes it's fun to dress up, it's fun to get dressed up in work clothes. Said nobody ever, right? But if I want to get, sometime maybe once or twice a year, it does feel good to get dressed up. I don't mind throwing on a suit to go to a wedding or go to a show or go to a conference or something like that. But I don't necessarily have to go to the office to dress up, right? If I want to dress up and feel good, maybe me and the girlfriend, or maybe you and the wife can throw on your best clothes and go out for a cocktail or go out for a nice dinner or something like that. It's not like you have to go back into work. They're like, we have food here, and the woman's like, yeah, you mean Phil, who shows up in his old mail truck with 3-day-old sandwiches wrapped in saran wrap with soggy bread? That's the food you're trying to get me to come back to? And it was just kind of a funny video with this kind of woman breaking down why none of the reasons that her employer gave for why she should want to come back into the office are good reasons or valid. But kind of my thesis in this video is that both employers and employees are both being dishonest about remote work. And one thing, you guys have probably heard me say this a million times, we have this very antiquated view of time for money, right? Rather than paying somebody for a certain skill set that they have, rather than paying for a specific end result, you want to make a certain amount of money, you need some project done, rather than paying for a certain task, a certain result, a certain skill set, we have this idea that we're paying somebody for 8 hours a day, for 40 hours a week of sitting in a chair and staring at the screen. And really, if the end goal is being accomplished, if you're meeting your revenue goals, if your projects are being done, it really shouldn't matter to an employer, how long it takes you to do it, how you go about doing your job, how you break up your work. As long as everything's getting done, that's all you should really care about. But we kind of have this idea that time is attached to money. And let's say that you could finish your 40-hour work week in 20 hours. Is your employer still going to pay you the same salary for half the work? Well, no, in their mind, and really in society as a whole's mind, we have this idea where we attach time to money, and if you were able to get your 40 hours of work done in 20 hours and just have an extra 20 hours to yourself for the week, your employer would feel slighted, right? They would feel like, well, if this guy's got an extra 20 hours, what else could he be doing to grow the company? There's other work we could have him do. There's probably some busy work. Maybe they could clean up. Maybe they could organize files. So your employer wants to get as much work out of you as possible, and you want to get as much money out of your employer as possible for as little as work as possible. And we'll kind of get into this in more depth, but here's why employers and employees are being dishonest about remote work. And I saw a couple interesting discussions on both 4chan and Reddit recently that kind of really highlighted this for me. So one discussion was somebody had asked, I think it was an Ask Me Anything or Ask Reddit or something like that. Somebody said, what are your favorite things about working from home? And, obviously some people are throwing out silly answers like jerking off and stuff like that, although plenty of people do jerk off during work. And there's even been some high-level executives at news organizations who have gotten caught jerking off on camera during Zoom meetings. I mean, in all seriousness, the answers were like, I really love being able to take a nap. And then, several other responses would be like, yeah, I take 2 to 3 naps per day. I don't know how people make it through the day without a nap. People are napping. Some people are like, I like watching Netflix. I like watching TV. I like being able to run errands. I like being able to take my dog for a walk. I like being able to play video games. And obviously pretty much all of the, there were a couple people said things like, oh, I like, not having to buy lunch out and being able to prepare my own lunch in my kitchen, or I like being able to, pet my dog, during some downtime while I'm working. But like overwhelmingly, most of the things that people said they liked about working remotely were people basically being off task and not working. And, just seeing from my friends who have, jobs and work, used to work in offices, they're hanging out at each other's house smoking weed, they're playing video games, they're going for 20-mile bike rides. Like, nobody is really putting in their full out 8-hour day. And I'm not making any judgment about that. Like, I'm of the mindset that as long as all your work's getting done, who cares? But again, we have this societal thing where people think that they deserve to get 40 hours out of you. They feel like they're paying you time in return for, or they're paying you money in return for time. So when employees say that, I like to work from home because I'm more productive, what they really mean is I like working from home because I can finish my 8 hours of work in 3 hours, and then I have 5 hours to read a book or hang out with my kids or prepare dinner or do whatever else. And again, I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm just kind of, calling out the reality of it. Now, when we look at employers, the guy in the car next to me is picking his nose and eating his boogers. But when we look at employers, and employers say things like, you know what, something's lost when we don't have face-to-face communication. Or, there's something about the rapport being built when you see people in the office every day. Or, corporate culture is really important to us. When they say things like this, that's not really what they mean either. So in the same way that employees say they like remote work for certain reasons and it's really for other reasons, employers say we like remote work for all of these reasons. When they say things like corporate culture and face-to-face communication, what they really mean is one of a couple things. So one thing they really mean is, we got 8 more years on a really expensive office lease, and we don't want that office sitting empty, so you're going to have to come into the office. Another thing that they really mean is, we have a lot of middle managers who kind of need to justify who don't really do a whole lot of anything, and we kind of need to justify their existence by having you people in the office, right? Like that's what they really mean when they say come in for the company culture or whatever, the face-to-face communication. And some people who have actually returned to the office have kind of shared stories and expressed frustration. They say, my company put up this big stink about how important building rapport is and communication is and face-to-face communication is. They say, but I come back into the office and the CFO literally sits 6 feet behind me. And when he wants to tell me something, instead of like looking at me and talking to me or coming to my desk, he sends me a message on Hangout, or he sends me a message on Slack. Or when he wants to talk to me, we set up a Zoom meeting, and it's like, you told me you wanted me to come back into the office because face-to-face communication rapport is so important. Yet even though you're sitting 6 feet away from me, you're talking to me through a computer screen on a Zoom meeting, or you're calling me on a phone, or you're chatting to me on Hangouts. Like if this is how we're going to communicate, I might as well be at home, right? Like if you really want to bring me into the office and kind of build that rapport and have that communication, cool. But if you're going to talk to me over Hangouts or Skype or whatever else, or Zoom, why are you calling me back into the office? If we're going to communicate over screens, I can communicate with you through a screen from home. And so that's what I mean about how employers and employees are kind of being dishonest about their reasons for wanting or not wanting remote work. Now, it'll be interesting to see how things pan out because nobody trusts the media, and because, every media article wants to kind of push a certain narrative, whether it be work from home should end or work from home is great and should go on forever. It's hard to know which, what the truth is or what the accurate numbers are. I've seen some numbers saying that it's about 50-50 companies who've returned to the office and companies who haven't returned to the office. If I look at my own kind of set of friends and family members, outside of people who are teachers or do jobs where they literally, have to go into an office or have to go into a certain place to do their job, I would say overwhelmingly, I would say probably 60 to 70% of my friends and family members, their companies are still working remote. Some of them have started having people come in maybe once per week, but even that doesn't really seem to be enforced that much. And I'm seeing the same thing from a lot of companies, right? Like a lot of companies on the books, they have a policy that people need to swipe in or badge in once a week or so many times per month, but it's not really being enforced. Nobody's really cracking down on it. So I think it'll be interesting to see after the holiday season here, as we go into the new year, and as the recession kicks into full gear and people are less secure and confident in their job stability. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Everything's kind of gone quiet on this return to the office stuff, right? Like for a while we were hearing, companies are going to be calling people back into the office in October, back in November, after the first of the year, whatever. The last big story I heard about people being called back into the office outside of Elon Musk getting remote work for Twitter was when GM tried to call people back into the office. So GM tried to call employees back into the office. They received such a backlash and so many people either outright refusing or saying they would quit that GM basically backtracked real quick. They basically pulled a PayPal. You remember when PayPal said they were going to fine people $2,500 for misinformation, and then quietly was like, oh no, it's a mistake. That email was never supposed to go out and it was never supposed to be added to our terms of service. By the way, PayPal, it's a totally separate topic, totally separate video. But PayPal has put, after the anger and everything about that died down, PayPal actually did put that back into their terms of service, that they can now fine you $2,500 for misinformation or violating their terms. So if you sell something that's not allowed to be sold, you might wind up getting fined at $2,500. But that's besides the point. I'm getting a little bit off track here. But GM backtracked real quick and was like, oh, that was a mistake. We were just putting a feeler out. We're not calling you guys back into the office. And ever since then, outside of the Twitter story, this whole return to the office conversation has gotten kind of quiet. So I don't think anyone's really going to push it heading into the holiday season and what traditionally at least is a busy season of the year. Obviously, we've talked about how FedEx is actually furloughing drivers during Q4, during the holiday season, a time when pretty much all of the shippers, FedEx, UPS, USPS, are all normally saying, we're not going to be able to deliver all the packages. There's too much demand. There's too many packages. There's not enough drivers. There's not enough trucks. And, this year, FedEx is actually furloughing drivers because there's not enough work for them. So I think that's pretty telling about the direction the economy is heading. But again, companies are trying to make the last of their money for the year. Companies are trying to put up good numbers here as we head into the fourth quarter. And I don't think anybody wants to rock the boat going into the holiday season. So it'll be interesting to see if in the new year, fresh year, fresh start, new beginning, it'll be interesting to see if companies do try to call people back into the office and return people to the office. I'd love to hear from you guys, either you personally or just what you're seeing amongst friends, family members, coworkers. Are most people currently working from home or working remotely? Have workplaces gone to a hybrid option? What are you hearing from people? Like, our company's going to call people back in after the new year. Would love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions about that. Kind of getting back to the whole topic of both employers and employees being dishonest about kind of their reasons for not wanting remote work. I think we really need to get, as a society, past the idea of time for money. It's kind of an antiquated idea going back to Henry Ford with the 5-day work week. I think for most jobs, we should be paying people for a skill set or a task or an end result, and how much time it takes them to do that skill or job or get that end result. It should be kind of irrelevant. But we are still attached to that, and until we kind of get away from that idea, I think there'll be a lot of kind of conflict around remote work. Here's the thing, right? Employers don't believe that you're going to stay on task and give them a full 40 hours a week from home. And I think employees acting like that is the case, I think are being a little bit disingenuous or dishonest. It's like this, right? When you're in high school and your parents go away for the weekend, go out of town for the weekend, and they say, don't have any parties, don't have any girls over, don't have anybody over. Are you going to listen to that? I don't know. Maybe there's some people who are really good kids and didn't do that. But I mean, the second that my parents would leave for the weekend, I was either having a party, I was having some buddies to come over and smoke some weed, drink some beer, and play some James Bond or some video game or something like that, some Mario Kart. Or, I was calling up some girl from school, having some girl come over and stay the night. And, that's just kind of human nature. There's the old saying, when the cat's away, the mouse will play. And, I think because people don't stay on task when they're at home, I don't think it makes them bad people. I don't think it makes them lazy. I think that's just kind of the reality that people are going to try to get away with as much as they can. And if we get away from this idea of time for money and just accept that if the job's getting done and getting job done to our satisfaction, maybe I don't need to micromanage, and maybe it's not any of my business how long the job takes to get done, or how the person is doing said job. So what hurdles could possibly get in the way? Well, I think one thing that could be kind of a sticking point. So there's certain jobs that can be done remotely or that can be done in under 40 hours a week, and there's other jobs that can't. And so I could see things getting sticky in an office if maybe, like, let's say the accounting and the marketing department are able to work remotely, or are able to work 4-hour work weeks, or are able to work 6-hour work days. But the people who work in the warehouse and logistics, or the people who work in customer service, if you say your customer service is open from 9 to 5, customer service has to be open from 9 to 5. So I could see things kind of getting sticky where you have certain people in the office who aren't able to work remotely, or who aren't able to work kind of more flexible work schedules, who are now kind of bitter that, like, hey, how come those guys in accounting get to go home at lunchtime and I'm fucking stuck here until 6 o'clock? And then it kind of gets a bunch of like bitterness and resentment. And you have people who are in customer service saying, no, I want to work in this other department. Nobody's going to want to work in customer service. Customer service is actually the people who have to work a full 8-hour workday. So I could see things kind of getting sticky in that way. But yeah, that's kind of my take on this whole remote work thing. I think one of the reasons that remote work is so popular and people are so passionate about remote work, since the 70s, efficiency or productivity in the workplace has skyrocketed, yet wages have only gone up about 17%. Like the productivity is up like over 70%, wages are up 17%. So I feel like employees feel kind of slighted, like I'm doing more work than ever before, I'm being more productive than ever before, but my pay isn't increasing. And even if you can get your 8-hour workday done in 2 hours, if you're in an office, what are you going to do? It's not like you can watch Netflix in the office. It's not like you can, do your laundry or really be off task. So your choice is either, make this 2 hours of work stretch out to 8 hours, or finish my 2 hours of work in 2 hours and then just stare at an Excel screen pretending to work for the next 5 hours, which generally speaking is more miserable than actually working and makes the time go by even slower. So there's really kind of, you can't really take advantage of being more productive. On the other hand, if you're at home and you can finish your 8-hour workday in 2 hours, well, now I got another 6 hours that I can watch The Price is Right in the morning and Judge Mathis in the afternoon. I can jerk off. I can fuck my wife. I can do meal prepping for the week. I can get a workout in. I can go for a bike ride. I can run some errands. And because somebody's not looking over your shoulder, you're actually able to take advantage of some of that extra time that the added productivity has gotten you. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, opinions, and comments about all of this. Go ahead and drop a comment down below in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. I had one thing I was going to say I always do this. I had one thing I was going to say at the beginning of this video, just in terms of like how I see this whole situation. I guess kind of an analogy. So I come from kind of an old school, traditional, Catholic Italian family, like very conservative. And pretty much all of my cousins have moved in with their significant others prior to getting married, which is something that in my family is kind of frowned upon. And I feel like the whole family knew that they moved in with their significant others, but everybody kind of pretended that that wasn't the case. So my cousin would act like she wasn't living with her boyfriend, and all of us knew that she was living with her boyfriend, but all of us would pretend like we didn't know she was living with her boyfriend. So it's like she knew that we knew that she was lying, but we all kind of went along with this whole charade. I have another cousin who's a lesbian, married to a great woman. They have 3 kids. They're one of the best couples I know. They're some of the best parents I know. They have the most well-behaved, best kids that I know. Great people. But when they first got together, my cousin was basically saying that her lesbian lover was her roommate. They moved in together. They would come to each other's holidays. They had pictures of each other all over their house. And like we would go over to her house for Thanksgiving, and my grandma would be like my grandma or my mom would be like, oh, you know, Jenny's roommate's really nice, or Jenny's friend's really nice. And, you know, being somewhat of an autist who can't go along with bullshit, like I would kind of like, in a funny way, kind of call it out. I'd be like, yeah, her lesbian lover is awesome. I think she's a really great person. She's really funny, blah, blah, blah. But like, you know, I was kind of calling out what everybody else kind of refused to kind of acknowledge. So, I mean, there was a period of many years where everybody would act like they were roommates. And they knew that nobody believed that. We knew that that wasn't the case, but we all just kind of went along with it. And I feel like the same thing is kind of going on with the whole remote work thing, right? Like employees know that they're not putting in a full 8 hours, which again is kind of irrelevant if their work's getting done. But employees know that they're not putting in a full 8 hours, but they want to act like that they are. And the employers know that they're not. But they're acting like, okay, well, yeah, I guess you probably are. So it's this whole big charade going on. And I think the sooner that we can kind of detach the idea of time from money, the sooner that we can realize that you're being paid for bringing in a certain amount of revenue, completing a certain job, completing a certain task, and not for having your butt in a chair staring at a screen for 8 hours a day. The sooner we can get past that, I think workplace morale will improve. I think employers will be happier. I think employees will be happier. I think productivity will improve. But we have to get past that. And I think we need to look at work more like the way if you call a locksmith because you lock yourself out of your car or lock yourself out of your house, you know, it takes them a whole 4 minutes to open the door and they charge you $300. Well, you're not saying, you know, I expected you to take 6 hours to finish this job. You're just fucking happy to be in your house. You know, for some reason, when we look at freelancers and contractors, we view things like that. You know, if I have somebody come out to remodel my kitchen or install a sink, I say, I'll pay you $8,000 to, refinish my kitchen. And, you know, whether it takes you 8 days to do it or 8 hours to do it, you know, I don't really care. At the end of the day, I'm paying 8 hours to have my kitchen remodeled. And I don't really care what it boils down to per hour. And I think we need to look at employees and just kind of the workplace in general like that. I mean, obviously there are some jobs where you're going to have to be there a full 8 hours a day. You know, if your business is open from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, somebody needs to be there staffing it during those hours. But outside of that, if it's a job that doesn't require you to be on site or at a desk for 8 hours, why are we kind of doing this whole thing attaching the idea that we're paying you for time as opposed to paying you for a skill set or a completed task? So I'll do my final wrap up of the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Would love to hear your comments on everything we've discussed here, so drop them down below. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. That's all I got for you guys today, and I will catch you on the next video.